Listeners, I'm Robin Black, and this is It's All About Healing podcast. Today, we have a special guest with us, Clifford. He is a recovering heroin addict, and he also had to deal with depression. But he's going to tell us his story and how he overcame all of this and how he's now thriving. How are you, Clifford?
Hey, Robin.
How's it going?
Doing well, doing really well. A lot better than I used to do.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
we definitely want to hear this story. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right. So I'm originally from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. That's where I grew up. I lived between there, Columbia, and Charlotte. And I got into music at a young age, probably around 12, 13. I started playing guitar, played hundreds of shows. I got into that live performance thing, and then I had multiple bands, band after band, probably had a total of 9 over the years. And then my last band, during that time in my life, I had slowly slipped into a depression without realizing it. You see the depression commercials and all that, and you're like, because they were trying to sell Zoloft and everything else.
Yeah.
So you see these commercials and you're like, oh, I might have 1 or 2 of those symptoms. Little did I know I was drowning in them. So at that time with that last band, I was also at a dead end job, essentially, in a unfulfilling relationship, with my girlfriend at the time. And my music thing was kind of hitting a ceiling. It was coming to a head. So I had all these things kind of converging on me. And I just didn't want to deal with them, really at the end of the day, that's what it was. So I started eating, what were they? Hydrocodone and Percocets, little, what seems harmless pain pills.
Yeah.
So narcotic pain pills. So I started taking those, just a little bit at a time, maybe on the weekends, every now and then, play some video games, maybe eat some and go to practice, and it started off innocent enough, probably a month apart every time I would, take these pills. And then, of course, that became every other weekend, then every weekend. And this is actually a very similar story to anyone that you ever hear tell how they got hooked on heroin. It starts with the pain pills. So as that progressed, I started getting stronger pain pills. I just kept running away. I didn't want to have to face what I needed to face. But they were on all fronts too, so it was overwhelming in itself, having to deal with all 3 of those things at one time. So I avoided it as long as I could, just by, taking the pills. Then that led into, well, you get to the stronger pills, they're pretty expensive on the street. So by the time you get to that point, you find out powdered heroin is actually cheaper. So, you can get higher for less. And so then that's how you transition normally. Transition into that. Of course, I was in denial for a very long time. So, I was like, oh, well, at least I'm just taking a pill. I'm not taking 3 pills. And then it turned into 3 pills. And then it's like, well, at least I'm not snorting the pills. And then it turns into snorting the pills. And it progressed like that for a long time until eventually, at one point in my life, I was 30, I think it was my 32nd birthday. Like on the day, I got diagnosed as a diabetic, as a type 1 diabetic, which is odd because, it's normally found in children. So I was about 32. They diagnosed me with that and sent me home with a little script for my insulin and needles. Now I was only snorting heroin at this point.
Yeah.
It was on and off. I tried Suboxone. I took Suboxone as a supplemental drug to keep me from going back to the heroin. So I was on it at that time. Now, after this, probably, I don't know, maybe not even a year after, everything just fell apart. I had started doing hip hop production at this point in my life, and I was doing that and guitar lessons full time.
Yeah.
So, I was maintaining my life as best I could on that supplemental drug, but, haven't faced the issues yet, hadn't faced what got me there yet. So then I have this massive breakup with the girl that I've been with for probably about 7 years, 6 or 7 years. 7 is a reoccurring number in my life. So about 6 or 7 years. And so that was devastating for me. And I, of course, relapsed. I moved out of town, didn't have my counselor or anything like that, or access to the supplemental drug. So I fell back into heroin. Now this time I had needles. So it was only a matter of time before I started shooting it, which I did. And that was when I lived in Charlotte that I started shooting heroin. And so as I got to where I hit rock bottom. Um, when I hit rock bottom, that's when I woke up. That was when I woke up in the hospital bed, and I was in there for probably about 5 or 6 days in ICU because not only was my blood sugar extremely high, probably at least it had to be plus no, past 1,000 at this point.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, that was really high, and then excuse me, that was really high. And I had also shot fake meth. I'm pretty sure it was fake meth because all
Mhm.
my other vitals were just all over the place. It was a
Yeah.
very odd situation to be in when I shot that meth, and I was just starting to experiment with meth. And when
Hmm.
I hit that hospital bed so hard, and so anyway, they had me in ICU for 5 days. I was unconscious for 2 of them.
Hmm.
There's a whole story leading up to that that is, pretty dramatic story of just making it to the hospital.
Really?
So I did make it there. When I came out, I remember I come out with a very different mindset. I was laying
Hmm.
on the hospital bed and they offered me, I smoked cigarettes at the time. They offered me a patch, a nicotine patch. And I remember
Hmm.
thinking, yes, this is that addiction in its simplest form being offered to me by the doctors in the bed that I'm laying in.
Right.
And I was like, this is the reason that I'm here, is saying, yeah, I'll take that patch. And I remember
Right.
thinking that and being like, this kind of decision making is what ruined my life.
Mm.
Um, so I finally, after days and days, visitors here and there, like my mom, my dad, they popped in, and some other visitors popped in. But I was finally coming out of the ICU, and I remember seeing sunlight through the window the first time and just being extremely excited about the sunlight coming through the window.
Right.
Even as a child, I didn't have that kind of wonderment.
Yeah.
So coming out of there, I was very excited, and everything was just built off of that. Now, I will say, after I came out of that hospital, I did do heroin one more time.
Hmm.
I borrowed a friend's truck, had $10 to my name,
Yeah.
waited 2 hours for the dope man, finally meet up with him and shoot it in this truck. I
Hmm.
shoot it in my vein, and I remember thinking, I can't believe I threw my whole life away for this feeling. You know,
Right.
so the
Yeah.
mindset had already changed, but I had to shoot it
Hmm.
one more time. I was, an addict. So I went and shot it and realized that I don't love it anymore. And that it
Yeah.
had cost me everything. And
Yeah.
that is all a story in itself. But since then, I decided to rebuild my life, which meant that as a heroin addict, if you're trying to, stop heroin, quit heroin, you have to get out of whatever town you're in. And you got to
Hmm.
lean heavily on the ones that love you and that can help support you in that process. And remember who you are.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so what is that like trying to fight that addiction? Like what did you do
So
to try to, keep from going back to it?
Okay. Now this was an ongoing struggle. I wanted to quit so many times that I tried to quit so many times, whether it was using Suboxone to help or whether I was trying to do it cold turkey or even wean yourself off. I mean, that's a possibility too. But as you know, you have heroin withdrawals. Those are very, very intense, very extreme. Those are the
Hmm.
things that keep me from going back, just remembering those feelings that I felt, and not just physically, but mentally. And the mental was the hardest part, because you feel this terrible, your brain's not releasing these endorphins anymore. So you feel terrible for that. But you're also thinking about all the things that you've been running from for years that you don't want to mess with. And then now you have to.
Yeah.
So that was one of the hardest parts about the withdrawals and all that. And now there were, I could say at least say about 50 times that I had tried to quit and just didn't have the support system, the mental capacity to
Hmm.
even get through a week. So, and I remember looking at people that were sober and wishing that I could be that. And
Yeah.
so that was, all the way leading up to this, where I told you about the hospital. I think the hospital, it happened in 2017, October 2017.
Hmm.
And it all led to there. But for the final, when I was leaving and I was like, okay, I'm done with all this, there was a lot of downtime. And there was, because I had forgotten who I was. So I spent that downtime eating. First of all, I filled my time with eating. That was a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I went. Apparently, when I went into the hospital, my body went into starvation mode. I didn't know that was even a thing. And then
Uh,
so I could eat and eat and eat, and my appetite wouldn't go away. I could eat a full meal and then just be ready to eat another full meal. So, for a couple of months, my body was acting like that. My brain's also trying to balance back out. The chemicals are trying to get right again.
Yeah.
So I had to leave because I'd still have cravings for heroin and I'd have nightmares. I say nightmares, but they were just dreams that I was getting heroin. And then
Yeah.
you wake up and you really want it.
Yeah.
But I was about 6 hours away from anybody that I could even kind of think might get it for me. I put
Mhm.
myself very, very far away from it. And I was living at my dad's, so it was nice to reconnect with him and remember myself by spending time with him too. And then music, of course, I just digested and ingested and studied a lot of music in that time. Picked the guitar back up and started writing songs, mostly about my past experience, different experiences. I wrote a song called At the Edge. That song is about when I was in that truck and shot heroin for
Mhm.
the last time and like the thoughts and emotions that were going through my mind.
Yeah.
So it's been good for that. It's that there's a lot of things that I have to write from that, but I'm also processing all that through writing it too.
Yeah.
But I think what helped me the most with recovery was the support system of loved ones, real loved
Mhm.
ones, family that have always really been there. Or maybe others that have already recovered. I'm not talking about, I think I might be recovered kind of recovery.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? I was like, I didn't want to be in and out of groups all the time. It just was one of the things that didn't work for me. Then it works for some people. So if that's your support, then that's what you need. Problem is, if I would have hung around those circles, I would have found heroin again easily,
Yeah.
very easily. One of us would have relapsed, and that would have been that. So I got very far away and rebuilt my life with that intention, one day at a time, to rebuild my life.
And can you share with us what that experience is like when you're going through heroin withdrawal?
Yeah, so you can read about it, of course.
Mhm.
I'm gonna describe it a little better.
Mhm.
Heroin withdrawal lasts over normally about 5 to 7 days span. The
Mhm.
intense noticeable parts. I'm sorry. The intense noticeable parts last that long. And it starts with a little skin crawl. You get a little skin crawl, like chicken skin. I don't know if you've ever heard of that term, but
No.
it's like anything. Your skin is extremely sensitive to anything, and nothing feels good. You know,
Okay.
so if you were to kind of just do like this across someone's arm that's experiencing that, it would just nails on a chalkboard. It's past nails on a chalkboard. So
Oh
that's
wow.
one of the symptoms. The next thing is the chicken skin and the withdrawals. They come in waves, so they'll hit
Mhm.
you, and then at maybe 45 minutes you won't even really feel it as much. Then it'll come back, and that window closes from 45 minutes down to 30, down to 20. It
Yeah.
takes all day for that to happen. So you're going, oh man, I can tell that I'm just coming into these withdrawals. How am I ever going to make it through? Because every moment is an eternity. So
Right.
you don't think you're getting, it just doesn't feel like you're ever going to make it through it. So you got the chicken skin. Some people get nausea, upset stomach.
Mhm.
All these withdrawals really intensify fully in the middle of the withdrawal, week, 5 days, whatever.
Mhm.
And then let's see what else you got. You got the mental thing. The
Right.
mental thing is, your brain not releasing the chemicals that are released from day to day. You wake up in the morning and you yawn and you stretch. Your brain's releasing these chemicals. You feel really good normally,
Mhm.
assuming you're not depressed. If you wake up and you don't feel good, you should look into see if you're depressed really, because
Right.
I never wanted to wake up during those days.
Mhm.
So waking up, I hated it. I wanted to sleep forever.
Yeah.
So yeah, I woke up. So when you stretch and you feel great, and or you laugh with a friend or something, that's
Mhm.
releasing these chemicals. Well, what heroin does is it releases extra of those chemicals to the point to where when you stop taking it, you become depleted. Your brain stops releasing them because you've been forcing it to release them, and it
Right.
has to rebalance. So the physical things are absolutely terrible. They call it like the super flu. I've looked it up
Mhm.
before. In anticipation of the withdrawals, because I couldn't get up with my dope, man. I'm like, I know I'm gonna be sick.
Yeah.
So let me kind of mentally prepare for this, which it doesn't work that way. But I would look up the things, and they call it the super flu.
Mhm.
Because if you've had the flu, it's like that times 10. It's like a full blown flu times 10. You want to die, but you can't. And
Right.
Yeah, and so it's very, very intense. You can look up a lot of the symptoms, but the way I'm associated, the way I've associated with those symptoms
Mhm.
is it's very it's a trauma on its own,
Yeah.
going back and remembering that. And so that's another thing that kept me from. I was tempted one time up here in Asheville with a guy that I worked with in a restaurant who had it on him.
Hmm.
He had China White. China White is a off-white powdered heroin.
Yeah.
And he had it right there. And I considered it for a second and then immediately remembered the withdrawals and was like, nah, you keep that. And then
Yeah.
that was it. Yeah, ever since then, I haven't been tempted or anything like that. That was probably about 9 months after being up here. But yeah, the withdrawals are absolutely miserable. And
Hmm.
it's your body and your brain telling you, you shouldn't be doing this. you know?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And so the whole thing was you started with these drugs due to your depression.
Yeah, I was
And
depressed.
yeah, and what started your depression? Was it the breakup or was it before that?
It was before that. I was, I think, I really truly think, because ever since I got out of the hospital bed, I haven't had any of this depression. But I feel
Hmm.
like it was almost there almost all my life.
Oh, really?
Because you're as a child, I was bright-eyed, bushy-tailed.
Hmm.
The world was my oyster kind of thing. But as I got into teenage years, I had dropped out of school. I was working in restaurants, and I wanted to do the band thing. I wanted to be the famous musician, like
All
every
right.
kid that's in a band. Um, I wasn't going about it the right way. I wasn't making plans. I wasn't pursuing a career by any
Mhm.
means. So that kind of became stale as I got older. And then going into my relationship, of course, you got the honeymoon phase of every relationship. It was great at
Mhm.
first, but we really just didn't have that much in common at the end of the day. And then not even just like in our hobbies, but in the way that we thought. We were just essentially growing apart, slowly but surely. And between that, the career thing was really leaning on me. And my last band at the time, my band members were slowly becoming addicted to heroin too.
Mhm.
One of them's no longer with us. And then the other two I haven't heard from one of them, but I've heard from the other one on my birthday. And
Mhm.
she's still in it. She's still on the drugs and trying to maintain her life, but that's just going to fall off the rails at some point. But these were all my band members that were slipping away. And I was the
Mhm.
last one, really.
Yeah.
And I went and tried to get a job. This is a memory that I forgot about for years, and until maybe like a couple years ago.
Yeah.
But a couple years before I started taking the pills and running away from my life, I was actually I went to go do a job interview. I was like, okay, let me find a decent job that's in music. I'm gonna go maybe run some live sounds somewhere. I didn't have much experience, so I finally get this interview at House of Blues in North Myrtle Beach.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, yeah, I'm like, okay, cool. This is gonna be great. I got the interview. I nail interviews, restaurant interviews. I nail. So
Yeah.
he comes up and he rejects me on solid ground. Like he should have. I didn't have any experience or anything, but it wasn't what I wanted to hear. And I remember driving back to the house that day just in tears over this
Mhm.
whole thing, because I realized that there was just no music opportunities for me in Myrtle Beach. So all of this was converging on me, and that was really where I can now look back and know I didn't know I was depressed at the
Yeah.
time. Sometimes you should just look, as much as you don't want to admit to the symptoms of depression. Sometimes you might be. You got to look
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah.
That's essentially what happened. All that stuff was just weighing on me every day in and day out. And instead of me dealing with them as I should
Mhm.
have not only processed the emotions that I encourage people to process, but also I should have taken on my problems, faced them, but I didn't want to. So that's where the
Yeah.
pills came in.
Yeah. I understand that. And how are you coping with your depression as well as, I mean, like, how are you with cravings? Do you still have those?
No, I don't have cravings, not
Oh, well,
anymore.
that's really great. So how are you coping with your depression now?
Um, I'm not depressed.
Oh, that's even better. So
Yeah, no, I
that's
mean, I
really
know this is a dim lit room. Don't let it fool you. I
good.
am not depressed. I have been very joyous and joyful. When I said the word wonderment, I've never used that word until after I came
Mhm.
out of that hospital. I started
Yeah.
realizing how much beauty is in this life, in this world, in this universe
Yeah.
that we have.
Uh-huh.
My religious stance has changed drastically. I'm
Mhm.
not very religious. I'm more spiritual, you know.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Um, and I come from a very Southern Baptist church, Southern Baptist family.
Uh-huh.
So I had to kind of rethink. I had to kind of find my own way in the spiritual side of things. But like I said, when I came out of that hospital room, the sun coming through the window was exciting to me. So you can imagine everything else from then on was exciting to me. It's almost like I realized my love for life in that
Yeah.
hospital bed. I don't know what did it. I didn't have some profound meeting with God or anything, it wasn't
Mhm.
anything like that. I was unconscious for a couple of days. But
Mhm.
I think that I just realized what I needed to do in that moment and just ran with it. But
Yeah.
the depression was brought on to me by the problems in my life that I was not dealing with, that I was
Okay.
not facing. And now
Yeah.
I like to live to the point to where I am who I am. I have
Yeah.
to be strong myself first before I have to love me before I can love anyone else.
Absolutely.
And so that's why I'm very centered and at peace. Now I'm more career oriented, focused.
Mhm.
And the most stress I ever deal with is I don't really deal with much stress anymore. I guess I might stress myself out sometimes thinking about what to focus more on in my music career. But that's
Mhm.
really as bad as it gets. Now, of
Yeah.
course, it is good to check yourself sometimes, to make sure you're not like slipping back into something you don't realize. But no, I haven't been depressed for 6 years.
Wow. That's a definite blessing. So tell us a little bit about your music career.
Okay, so I've always loved composing at the end of the day. That's
Mhm.
why I started playing guitar. I was like, oh, you can write your own music on here. So I took that and kind of ran with it. I started writing original songs when I was about 12 years old, just the music part. My sister was actually a lyricist
Mhm.
and a singer. So we wrote quite a bit of songs together. And then as I got older, I got into music production. That's when I started doing production out in hip hop production out in Charlotte, recording a lot of rappers. They would bring their music in, and then I would record their vocals, mix it, master it, and all that. I
Mhm.
did that for, like I said, 4 years in Charlotte. But when I came back over here and I was getting back into music, I was like, I had been listening to the same groups and artists for that I listened to when I was maybe 15, 16, 17. And I was like, I need to find some new music. As someone who creates it, you should be always be listening to new music. So that was really what helped pacify me in those times when I was trying to rebuild my life, remember who I was. Because when you're doing that, you have so much extra time on your hands,
Yeah.
you know? So I did that with that and then got back into producing. When we got the COVID stimulus money,
Uh-huh.
I went and bought all the studios. Like you see the pads and all that behind me. I have a studio here at the house,
Yeah.
and I went and bought all the studio stuff and started making music for different things. I wanted to. I've been studying the business a lot lately and finding out where the money is in the music business and how to get there.
Mhm.
But lately, what's been fun is the podcast stuff. It's essentially just sync music. Like I would talk to the client. They tell me what their podcast is about, what sound they're looking for. Because sometimes it's just a preference for them, what they want to have at the beginning and end of their podcast or during the commercials.
Yeah.
So we essentially come up with some type of a score for that, like a
Mhm.
bass piece of music, and then I tailor it to the intro, to the outro, and to the commercial, however they want. It's essentially like a 30-second piece of music that turns into about a minute and a half, just with three
Right.
different easily editable versions. And it's
Mhm.
been pretty good for me. I've done some work for I've done some work for a few different big names in their fields, uh, and mostly, like I said, mostly dramatic pieces. But my
Mhm.
art that has to do with my old addiction and heroin addiction and all that is
Mhm.
under the name Clifford Howard, just my name. I've come up with so
Right.
many band names in the past. I'm just tired of doing it. I'm just
Yeah.
gonna put it under my name. So those songs stream everywhere. If you just Google Clifford Howard music, you'll find it.
Okay.
And a lot of those songs, like one of the songs has to do with At the Edge has to do with when I shot heroin in the truck for the last time.
Hmm.
Then I have another one that's Elizabeth Bathory. It's actually about how vampirism relates to the needle, almost like the needle is the teeth. And
Hmm.
it is written in a way that you're realizing that this thing is taking you over.
Yeah.
So there's a few different, and these they have a dark aesthetic. Of course they would, because these were the kinds of thoughts and emotions I was having during my addiction.
Right.
Um, so I've been doing that more for me, and anybody else that would get into something like that, and I put it up there. I push it a little bit, not really as much as the business side of everything. But yeah, making the custom music for the podcast has been a lot of fun. And as you know, the podcast industry is booming.
Yes.
So yeah, that's what I've been doing with my music lately.
Oh, okay, I like that. And then before we started recording, you also said that you recently got engaged, right?
Yeah, I got engaged September. I'm pretty sure it was September.
Uh-huh.
That's not the
You don't
date I have to
remember?
remember.
Why would you remember when you got engaged?
I don't know. I was thinking about it earlier too. I was like, I'm definitely gonna bring up the engagement, but I don't
Uh-huh.
remember the date of when it happened. I took her up to the top. There's this place out here in Asheville called Max Patch, and it's up on
Mhm.
like pretty much like a bald mountaintop. She got a 360 view of the mountains,
Yeah.
and she's a photographer, and she does most of her sessions up there. And I was like, I think, and that's her favorite place to be. So that's where I took her. I took her up there to do it.
Oh, okay. That's really nice. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for sharing that. Um, your story is amazing, and I like that. So, how can our listeners get a hold of you? Not just through your music, but did you have like a website or anything as well?
The only website that I have that's functioning right now is my cliffordhoward.com.
Okay.
And that's really for the art. I'm essentially going to have two websites, and the other one's elevatemusicpro.com. You can see that one. That one's up now. That's more for my podcast productions. You can listen to past music I've done for the different podcasters on elevatemusicpro.com. Then you got cliffordhoward.com, and I have these socials as well. I have socials for each of those, the Clifford Howard and the Elevate Music Production. I have socials for each. So you could get up with me on Facebook, Instagram, any of those, TikTok. I've got all of them, really. But
Okay.
yeah, if you Google Clifford Howard Music, you'll find a way to get up with me for sure. I also have an email. So it's elevatemusicproduction@gmail. So you can just email me there. Email is probably the best way anyway. It's nice and
Mhm.
organized.
Okay. And then I'll also put that in the show notes. And as far as the podcast music, do you offer royalty free podcast music or is
Yeah,
it something? Okay.
royalty free, work for hire, essentially.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Because I actually looked into it. I was like, are there royalties? I don't even know if there's royalties because I've noticed with podcasts they say downloads instead of streams,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm. Yes.
And I was like, and I looked into it, and I don't think there's anything set up in place really as far as royalties on the actual podcast. I'm not sure how that works. I'm still trying to learn that part of it. But the way I do it right now is it's just work for hire. You get the music outright for anywhere from 400 to 500. It depends on how much, like whether we're doing lots of revisions, how much
Hmm.
time I'm actually spending on the track. It can vary, but it's normally around $400 work
Okay.
for hire. And then I send you the IPS, the intellectual property assignment, which makes it legally yours.
Yeah.
And then you get the stems too. So you can take this music, you can even have it remixed. Say you want to bring it back alive a year later and just remix it, give it,
Hmm.
breathe new life into it. You can always do that. And it's there for your rebranding or whatever you would use it for.
Okay. All right. And then also, what advice would you have for any of our listeners?
I would say find your trauma. We go through it, all of us, and trauma might like seem like a heavy word, but it's not. Most people, I mean, I would say all people have experienced some type of trauma, and some people have dealt with it.
Hmm.
But you might not have if you're depressed. It's a moral inventory. It's actually one of the 12 steps that I'm
Hmm.
fully in line with. I think it's a great part of the 12 steps. Is the moral inventory. No one really told me exactly what that meant. I wasn't terribly deep in the recovery community, so no one could tell me that moral inventory is you sitting alone, quietly, peacefully, and addressing your trauma, essentially.
Right.
And then figuring out how to work through it. And that's how you start healing.
Yeah. I like that. I like that a lot. Thank you so much for that. It has been such a pleasure speaking with you. And I know for a fact that your story is going to help several people out here and it's going to impact their lives as well. So I thank you so much, Clifford.
Yeah, it's been fun. Thanks for having me on, Robin.
No problem. Everyone, again, this was Clifford Howard, and this is It's All About Healing podcast. Everyone stay blessed.
Bye.
Again, I'm your host, Robin Black, and this is It's All About Healing podcast. If you're navigating grief, toxic relationships, trauma, financial pressure, or the slow work of rebuilding after setback piled upon setback, this channel is for you. Our community now spans 118 countries, proof that real stories travel and that healing accelerates when we carry one another. Share your story, lend your voice, and let grace turn pain into purpose. Book your podcast in the link below and share your story. Be sure to like and subscribe, and don't forget to hit that notification bell. Wherever you are in the world, good morning, good evening, and good night. Stay blessed.